Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. This is my weekly catch up on everything I have read, I'm currently reading, I'm looking forward to reading in the next week, and I'm kind of of two minds this week. I'm feeling a lot of excitement about reading. It's very cool seeing everybody who is doing reflections and planning. There's so much of that going on, and I love this season for that. I love seeing my Goodreads feed full of people who are adding things to their TBRs. Very exciting. I finished up a couple of things that have been on my currently reading for months. That adds to my excitement. It opens up a lot of reading time, but I'm also feeling like lack of motivation, I would say. I'm having a real hard time getting myself to do not just reading, but just about anything right now. And we've had a big slowdown in my work, so I theoretically have all this time. I'm still working from home, and if nothing's happening there, I can kind of be up and around doing other stuff, waiting for problems to come in. And I'm not. I'm just kind of endlessly scrolling or watching more YouTube than I need to, or watching other things. But yeah, I have kept myself going. So I have been reading still quite a bit, as always, but just not as much as I could be. So I'm kind of allowing myself to feel that need for a little bit of a break and time to just do nothing. So yeah, it's been a demotivated week a little bit, I think. But I'm very excited to wrap up the stuff that I have. So let's jump right into it. So the first one that I've had ongoing since July. You may not remember this one because I showed it way back then and haven't been showing it regularly. And that one is The Song of the Forever Rains by E.J. Mellow. This is the first in a series, the Musai series, and everything on paper about this sounded great. You may not have seen this because I read on my phone when I have just a few minutes here and there. So I always have a phone book going, and this was that phone book. So I started reading it and have read it a couple pages at a time here and there, and then I set it aside in order to prioritize using that time toward another chunky book, and that was The Burning God. And so when I finished that, I decided to jump back into this, and it had been meandering to the point that I decided I was gonna give it a chapter before I either DNF'd or it pulled me back in. And maybe unfortunately, that one chapter happened to have some elements that were there in the very beginning of the book that did really pull me back in. And so I did end up finishing this 400 plus page book, even though it was not my favorite thing. So the premise at the start that did pull me in was that this is all centered around this Musai underground thieves kingdom. And that sounds so cool. There's also a magic that is artistically based. So this one is songs. So Larkyria, our main character, has singing magic, and she's kind of sent on a quest outside the kingdom, basically. More of a task, I guess, not an epic quest or anything. But there are also these lost gods behind it, and they are very, very Lovecraftian old god style. So that was so cool. So all of those elements, the bullet points, make it sound like something that should be my absolute catnip. But this book just got mired in rambling and kind of just random nonsense that I was not interested in at all. And then it also has a pretty strong romantic subplot, but there's no real romance or romantic tension between the characters who are having the romance. So I didn't get that or get behind them as a couple. This Forever Rains element of the title is referencing that this outside kingdom where she goes to is under a forever rain. And we don't really get very much explanation about that either. So there were all these big elements that were so interesting that I wanted more about, that, you know, they pulled me in and I was there for it, but they never delivered. So I didn't love this one. I think it had all of the points to be a great book, but it just didn't execute the way that I wanted it to, and so it wasn't really for me. So I do know the second book has either come out or is about to come out, and it has an equally gorgeous cover. And that one I think has dancing magic. So I don't know. So I do have a couple spoilery things to say, to kind of comment on that. I would say are maybe trigger warnings as well. So if you don't want any sort of spoilers, then skip to where I'm not holding up this book. So I would say the love interest in here is an adult man, and he has been suffering abuse from his parent. And so it tackles that theme really, really well, I felt, where it's actually getting into having an adult man being subjected to abuse by a parent and taking that seriously. And there is an element of khōréō has healing magic, and she heals away some of his scars. And so that sounds kind of sickly sweet, right? But in reality, when that happens, he feels almost like he's being gaslit. And I thought that was a really well-handled moment because he feels like they were evidence of the abuse that was happening to him. And then she made it be like it wasn't actually real, and he was, you know, in his head about that. So I thought that one was really good. And then the other element that I thought was really good was that it kind of tried to touch on the complexity of addiction. And I don't want to talk any more about that one because it is right at the very end. I think it didn't delve in maybe with as much depth or nuance as it could have, just because it was trying to focus elsewhere. But I think what it did do briefly was well handled. So yeah, I think that was good, and definitely would be interested in maybe checking out an adult series from this author. This one is YA as far as I know. So that's that one. Then my next chunky one, long ongoing, The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the final book in the Daevabad trilogy. So this series is big epic fantasy. This is set in a historical Cairo for the start, and then it kind of jumps into this massive kingdom of Jinn. So our protagonist, or main protagonist, I would say, is Nari, who is a con artist, and she does a con where she is performing a ritual, and that ritual actually turns out to be magic. And so she awakens a Jinn who then takes her off to this Jinn kingdom. So this series has really progressed from the first book, and they're so chunky that it would have to go somewhere. But I feel like this is the first book of the trilogy that had no dead weight for being such a large book. The first one is really a big journey book. It's a journey and a setup of Nari learning about this kingdom and kind of all the rules of the kingdom. The second one is her kind of becoming immersed in that society. There's a big time jump before the second one, and it's her understanding the conflicts in politics between these different factions of the Deva, who are the Jinn. And this final book is all of those political conflicts between the Jinn coming to a head. And so there is a lot of conflict and action in here, just constantly. It's Nari realizing that she has one foot in this world, in the real world of Egypt, and her love for that place, along with the Deva world. And her having to come to terms with that conflict of being one foot in and one foot out. And so that was a really interesting element I loved. So I think this one, far and away, the best book of the series for me. I felt like the other ones could have been edited down significantly. This one, I feel like it should have actually been maybe expanded and broken up into 2 books perhaps, but I think it did okay for the size. I also think that over the course of book 2 and 3, we had a lot of side characters who are not POV characters that were developed out so well that they're really major fleshed out characters who we can get attached to and get behind. The villains of this are really believable. Like, you can understand their motivations as far as I'm concerned. So I think it did really, really well with that. And the conclusion for this seemed like it was something that all of this was building toward. So that felt so satisfying. I thought that was just really masterfully done for something where she has written this huge epic series as her debut. She has not written any other work to my knowledge. So I think S.A. Chakraborty did a really, really phenomenal job with this. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this one. It's really hard to talk about once you're into, 3,000 pages almost of this series, I think. Yeah, it was really, really good and really compelling to read. I wish I had kind of read it more together because the complexity between the different Deva factions needed a lot more, but the back matter actually has an absolute ton about all of this. So I would say there's this is all back matter. So there's 50 pages of character lists and description of the different factions and all of that. So yeah, if you need references, for sure, if you're feeling like you forgot some stuff, definitely I would jump right to the back and read through. Then, next thing I finished was By Demons Be Driven, the 4th book in the Grimlock Demon Hunter series. And this one is actually pretty standalone. Most of the series is very episodic adventures. This one is totally self-contained. So I think you could start the series here if you wanted to, and I would say it's a really great place to start. So in this one, Grimlock, our orc demon hunter here, he has been doing jobs around the area and checks a job posting and notices a post for brave adventurers to come to this Founders Festival at a town. And he starts on his way and then gets sidelined by a demon knight who he kills. And this demon knight kind of harried him along his way heading toward this village. So he feels like that's leading him there, really. So he continues on his way to the village, but with his kind of hackles up about there might be something wrong there. And he gets there, and of course, everything about this Founders Festival is super ominous. So, yeah, he gets there and realizes it's a village of cultists. I don't think that's a real spoiler to say. It's Lovecraftian weirdness. It's so fun and kind of pulpy, which that's what you're getting into when you get into weird Western stories like this. But as always, I just love Grimlock's character. One of the really intriguing things that's done in here that doesn't start in this book is that because he's an orc, he is treated really negatively by a lot of people because they just expect orcs to be bad or stupid. And so that's very overt in the beginning of this. It's really a strong thing where people are just being really rude to him. And then he gets to this town and everyone is nice to him. And so he's like, that's not right. There's something really suspicious here. And so we have these themes of racism there, for sure, and microaggressions. And then later on, we have a pretty strong element underlying this of colonialism. So I feel like this is a great take on doing something kind of pulpy and light and action-packed, but with really deeper themes buried inside of there. So I really, really like that element here. So I think it's really hard to talk about anything that ties back to previous books or any of my thoughts on previous books, since this is the 4th book. But I think the pacing was really great and it keeps up the action very, very well. The monster depictions were really cool, and you can see we've got a big werewolf element, and this is a demonic 6-eyed werewolf. There are major Lovecraftian elements, and this one I think was the most Lovecraftian of all of them, where we have actual references to Nyarlathotep and real named Lovecraftian baddies in here. So that was interesting and fun. There is a whole host of all of the typical Lord of the Rings style group where we have a band of adventurers and we've got halflings and dwarfs and elves and of course our orc here. So that's really fun. We always have a really great diverse cast as well. Something I love that Ashe does in these books that not a lot of authors do is he doesn't shy away from jumping heads. So when I say that, I mean like changing perspectives, and not like midstream change. There are chapter breaks in here, and every once in a while we will jump to a villain's perspective. And that is so smart to do, rather than try to info dump or kind of shoehorn in information that Grimlock really shouldn't have. We actually get into a perspective that does see those things and really makes things ominous, because we can actually see things that he doesn't know about yet that are going to impact him really negatively. So I think that really amps up the tension so well, and gives us some insight into some really creepy, spooky stuff. So I just love this series. It is super entertaining. Every single book that I've read, I've enjoyed. This one didn't have quite the emotional impact that the book 2 and book 3 had for me, so it wasn't my favorite of the series, but I really, really enjoyed this one. And last one that I read this week was a children's book. So I went in specifically looking for a holiday book, and instead I picked this up because it's freaking gorgeous. So this is Trees by Tony Johnston and Tiffany Bozic, who did the illustrations. And look at the end papers. So end papers are gorgeous. You may not be getting that there's like a wood background there. The back end papers. Yeah. I read through this twice this week because I just loved the pictures so much. They're so stunning and glorious. So let me find a couple good ones here. So there's that one, and this is my favorite one. I kind of want like a printout of this to hang on my wall. This little kid reading under a tree, and you probably can't see that the book she's reading, the picture is this picture. So it's very, very cute. Yeah. So I don't have very much to say about this one other than it's just a story about trees, very light. I did notice that, as I usually like in the back, this one has information. So it's got resources for other books that children or adults could read. It's got a list of the trees that are in this book down here. And then it's got a list of foundations that help support trees and keep them growing. So that one I really, really loved. Then on to the only remaining thing that I have in progress. How exciting! So only one remaining from last week. I've got all my Puny Sorrows. I knew from page 1 this was going to be a book I loved. I've already got some tabs in there. I'm only about 100 pages. This is 108 pages. So this is really dense. It is humorous, but it's about this person who is in deep, deep depression and is going through like suicide attempts and things. So very big trigger warnings for that. But I have loved Toews' previous work. I'm really enjoying this so much. So I will continue on with that one. I started a couple of other things. So the first thing that I started on ebook is for the Shorts and Sorcery book club that is run by Rhea from the Book Finch. I started up khōréō magazine, volume 1, and this is a speculative magazine. It's not fiction, it's got nonfiction as well. So mostly fiction though, but this is short stories and short essays, all from authors of immigrant and diaspora backgrounds. So that has been interesting so far. I've read the first 2 stories of I think 5, and really enjoyed both of them. So this has been an interesting one, and I'm liking that there are lots of food elements to these, so that's really great. So then the second one that I picked up and started, I started on the first story, but I have not finished that first story yet. It's got like 5 chapters to the short story, but that is a holiday romance anthology, Amor, Actually. I don't think this is actually based on the movie Love Actually, but it's kind of a play on that title from Latinx authors. And this has like Adriana Herrera, Alexis Daria, Diana Munoz Stewart, Mia Sosa, Priscilla Oliveras, Sabrina Sol, and Zoe Castile. So, and I think Zoe Castile is Sariana Cordova, I believe. That is what Kristinelle told me. Yeah, so I'm trying to buddy read this with Kristinelle SFF Reader again. We had a great buddy read of a holiday romance that we just finished up in, so we're trying to start this one. So I've started that one, but haven't finished the first story, so we'll see how it goes. So that's everything I've got in progress. So then the stuff I have in print to pick up next that I have not started yet, that will be started this week. I have Savor You by Kristen Proby. This was from my November reading options and I didn't get to it. And this is like at my limit of renewals, but my library is so nice and they always kind of extend things for you if they're coming due at a holiday, and they have already actually done that very early this year. So they did that, and this is already extended. This and all my stuff out from the library that I have left, which is very little surprisingly at this point, is extended to January. So I have plenty of time to get through this, but this is quite short. It's a professional chef romance, which I really am looking forward to. And then I have The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu, the second book of the Remembrance of Earth's Past series. I need to read this. This is on my TBR for the third time, I think. It's on my TBR this month. I'm going to read it before the end of the year and not let another year pass me by without finishing this one. So yeah, even if I have to read it all day on Christmas, we're gonna get this one done. This is a big chunky one though, 500 pages. So we'll see if I can finish it. I think I can. So that's all the stuff reading wise. I did, very exciting. I floated this out to you all a couple weeks ago. I took the leap and signed up for the BookTube prize. So that is really exciting. I have no idea what to expect, but I did sign up in the translated work category. So I have no idea. I think I'm going to be exposed to a lot of stuff I haven't read before. That'll be really, really exciting. So I haven't really been talking about like stuff I've been watching lately because I was kind of just not really watching anything too of interest, but I think I finished Great British Bake Off and then I like shifted gears into all the holiday things. And I've talked about this before, but if you haven't been around, last year was the first year ever that I really got into like holiday movies and that kind of stuff. And went full bore into it last year, and this year again I have been really, really into those. So I did the holiday episodes of Bake Off, I did holiday episodes of Blown Away, so I've really enjoyed those things. I think there are a couple of other like cozy reality shows that have holiday episodes out, so I'm gonna try and get into those. But I watched a couple of holiday movies as well. I watched Single All the Way on Netflix, I think. And that one is starring Michael Urie, who was on Ugly Betty all the years ago that was on. And I love him, so it was really fun. That one, it was a really high bar that it set, being my first holiday movie of the year. And it's so fun. It's a gay romance where, you know, it's friends to lovers. So these two guys have been like living together as roommates and best friends for years. And like the family is rooting for them to get together. It's so sweet. So that one, as I said, it set a really high bar, but it has already been topped by one that I would not have expected to top anything. I watched Ghosting, The Spirit of Christmas, and it's got literal ghosts in it. So I did not expect to love this, but I literally only watched it because I saw Aisha D is the star, and she is someone that I loved, absolutely adored in The Bold Type. And so I turned that on and I noticed that it also has Kimiko Glenn, who was on Orange is the New Black. She was kind of the really innocent, naive character in the later seasons. And she's adorable. But so they are best friends and they are roommates as well. And they're so close. They have this great like female friendship. That is the heart of this. I love that aspect so, so much. But everybody did such great performances in this. It was really innovative. It wasn't your typical rom-com, and like I said, it has really great female friendships involved here. It really diverse cast. I love that, both from a race and sexuality perspective. Really wonderful. So that one is actually top of my list right now, and I highly recommend if you're gonna watch one like fluffy romance for the holidays, you should watch that one. Ghosting, The Spirit of Christmas. Definitely check it out. And then, what else did I do? I think that's it for watching, really. I think that's all I watched. Yeah, so in life, not much has been going on. I got my Christmas decorating done. I do very little of that, so you'll see some footage of that. My work has slowed down. As I said, we hit a kind of a regulatory change freeze. So change freeze is a holiday for us, basically. So that has started as of yesterday. So things are really, really hopefully gonna stay quiet. We had a couple big things go on the past couple of days that kept me busy, but for the most part, things are dead. So yeah, I think that is pretty much it for my week. Really, there hasn't been a whole lot. In recommendations, I'm going to have some odd recommendations this week. So one of my favorite bands, Marina, from Marina and the Diamonds formerly, and now she's kind of solo, I think. But she put out a new song, Happy Loner, and I've had it absolutely stuck in my head. So I'm going to recommend you check out that song. I will link it down below. So the other one that I have is kind of tangentially bookish. It's a trailer for The Woman in the Window of the Girl Next Door. I think that's it. It's a very long title. But it's clearly like a parody of all these domestic thrillers. So kind of bookish, but obviously it's based off of the movie adaptation of The Woman in the Window. But that one looks so funny, and it's starring Kristen Bell, who I love, and I mean, does anybody not love her? Yeah, so I think that's all I've got. That one I thought was a joke trailer, but then there's clearly a date associated with it, so that one's coming up. Yeah, I think that's it for me this week. So if I don't see you, I hope you have a great holiday, but my current plans, if things don't go completely sideways or major plans come up, I've got a couple of videos for this week. I want to try to do a Poetry Thursday for you. And then I'm gonna try, I think, to do like a Friday recording of my weekly wrap up and then post it on Saturday. So yeah, and this one as well, I would say there have been crazy problems with processing on the videos on YouTube, that I've had issues with everything that has gone up this week. So this may or may not be up today on Saturday, or it may be up Sunday. It's been chaos, so who knows? I'm assuming it's everybody who's doing Vlogmas is really eating up the server processing from YouTube, so we'll see. But eventually things will be up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching as always. So Gina from Gina Stan Your Books talked about minimal decorating and low effort going to Christmas. So this is the extent of my Christmas tree. It's very low effort. I also pulled out the stops this year and picked up a couple of additional decorations at Target. So I found this little guy, and I got another one that is about twice the size to put together on one of my bookshelves. I really like those ones. And then I got 2 of these for my mantle. Super duper easy. So that is the extent of my holiday decorating. I watched Lauren in the Books. I think it was the first Vlogmas video, and watching her decorating level actually exhausted me. So I am not a big decorator. I will throw in that I do some outdoor decoration, so we'll get some footage of that, but I keep it very light and easy. So the extent of my holiday is keep it simple. Got my lights up. Let's see here. There's that. And then along the side. You may not be able to tell that it has gotten cold. My poor legs. This has definitely never happened before. Laps are in such high demand here that Ripley came and wedged herself up here, cuddled with Coco, which they never ever do. Were you very jealous, Ripley? What a good girl.